making for?
Back of the Truscott Ranges. Do you know the country?
Yes, I know it. Government haven't leased your land there, have they?
Yeah, I got a map here. Here we are. The shaded block.
We took the traditional lands and smashed the traditional way of life. We committed the murders. We took the children from their mothers.
The legal basis for Aboriginal land rights in Australia has been changed by a historic decision of the High Court in Canberra. The court ruling means the original inhabitants of Australia did have clearly recognisable land rights before European settlement.
In the Aboriginal site, the land has always been our land and always will be our land. People were saying, well, why did we need to have Mabo? Why do we need to have this High Court decision and the Native Title Act? Because this is our land anyway.
We now have the chance of legislating away the fiction of terra nullius, basing our national social policy with Aboriginal Islander people on a truth rather than a lie.
When we say representative, we're not replacing the real decision makers, being the traditional owners. Rather, we're just taking instructions from people.
We take our instructions from our senior people in the community. Well, we're not indispensable. Somebody's going to come up and do it. We just happen to be here in this time in history.
Cabinet prepares for a last-ditch meeting to resolve native title, the likely outcome has already been branded by Aborigines as a racist sellout to the states.
The compromise that was going to be reached was a denial of human rights under the Racial Discrimination Act.
So you've been betrayed?
I'm not authorised, and none of the other organisations are authorised to surrender racial discrimination protection on behalf of our constituents.
Paul Keating has come up with a compromise position on Mabo, which he hopes will be acceptable to Aborigines, existing landholders and most of the states. The plan would leave the Racial Discrimination Act intact while maintaining the states' rights to land management.
This legislation proposed by the government does not in any way bear upon valid leases over formerly Crown land for primary industry purposes. Does not in any way. So whatever questions you've got, please direct them to your lawyers or the High Court, not to me or the government. It has nothing to do with me or the government. Because, Mr. Speaker,
Order.
Let me repeat again, we are not legislating for valid leases. If the leases are valid, they're valid, full stop.
Renewed concerns from the farm lobby that native title may not be extinguished by the granting of pastoral leases.
I'm advised that on the basis of the Mabo decision of common law, pastoral leases extinguish native title to the extent of any inconsistency. That is, they don't extinguish absolutely, they extinguish to the extent of any inconsistency.
There's been widespread support for Federal Cabinet's Mabo package, ensuring its passage through Parliament.
We support the government's package as it's been outlined to us. In our view, it will help to create much greater certainty about land tenure.
The bill won't get the support of the federal coalition.
This is a day of shame for Australia. A day of shame for Australia. And it's a day of shame that's going to haunt you and your government every hour of every day between now and the next election.
It was just a few seconds after midnight when the Mabo Bill's tortuous journey through the Senate finally came to an end.
Order. Result of the division, there being 34 ayes and 30 noes, the question is resolved in the affirmative. Order. Order.
The government that I will lead will be a government not only for the people who voted for us, but also for the people who voted against us.
All staff will attend. We'll close the office. We'll put a notice up downstairs. Are you staying back or are you coming in?
I can stay back.
Would you like to come in? Come in. All right, so we all go in. No exceptions to the rule. I'll give Kate over yarn. I wanted to yarn about when we did it first time and what actually come through. Those of you who've read the Hansard report would probably pick up the emotions in it. The attitude was that we weren't black. We had no rights to land and we had no culture. So when you are going in there and when you are saying who you are traditionally, you're saying it because you represent your clans and your nation and your families, and you're talking from here. What we're trying to do is map out our position so that we can use it as a leverage point in future negotiations. Now, the leverage points that I'm talking about is where the Native Title Act stands.
What we're running is the argument that the proposed amendments to the Native Title Act are a shrinking of the rights. So if you argue that native title is sort of a body here, we're saying it's a common law right of Indigenous people, and you can't just legislatively take it away. The scales that balance up rights in the Native Title Act are tilted further in non-Indigenous favour.
Simon, you and Faye find out what time we have to be there, what time everyone has to leave, where we're going to park, all that kind of stuff.
Long tall ships have sailed out across the sea. Long tall ships, how they have come unto me. Men of different beliefs, and men of different religions. Long tall ships have sailed out across the seas and come onto my land, and come onto my people. Look at the blood they shed.
The Aboriginal staff to introduce themselves traditionally, then the non-Aboriginal staff of Murrumbidgee to introduce themselves, after which I'll do a formal address in relation to the status Murrumbidgee is taking, speaking on behalf of our constituents and speaking on behalf of the members, claimants, clients and associates of Murrumbidgee Nations.
The position that Murrumbidgee has taken in respect of the amendments has been put in through the Indigenous Working Group. Murrumbidgee has provided to Aboriginal people in this state a voice that's been heard at that level. It's a voice that hasn't been heard often, and it's a voice that's often been ignored. What we say about the amendments is that we have no certainty, of course, from the Native Title Act as it presently exists, but we also don't have any certainty in the process that's been engaged in respect of the amendments. So far as I can say at this stage, we don't think there's a need to change the threshold test, and we don't believe there's a need to change the right to negotiation process.
I have great concerns that people do not realise what this land issue is about, and fundamentally it's about my life, about my people's lives, and about the continuing culture of Aboriginal people. We take it as a given that Aboriginal culture is a living, breathing entity. We take it as a given that in 1788, when non-Aboriginal people came here, that they had the perception that they were from the future and we were from the past. And this is reflected in every Aboriginal imposed legislation, every imposed policy, and every inquiry that we've ever been into. It is indicative of the proposed amendments to the Native Title Act. And I must state that the National Working Party of Indigenous representative bodies have no problem with the workability of the Act. We have no problem with the rights. In fact, we made many concessions for the Act as it currently stands. But when we went and approached industry to work together on their problems with the workability of the Act, they quickly turned it into a method of taking away the rights of Aboriginal people, common law rights. We don't want those rights changed. We have no need of a threshold test, which once again forces Aboriginal people to justify their very existence, which once again forces Aboriginal people to justify what we have lost and justify the cost of trying to retrieve what is rightfully ours, not only in our law, but in your law as well.
Long tall ships have sailed out across the sea. Long tall ships, how they have come unto me.
Many people look upon the Australian Aborigines as the most backward and degraded people in the world, with such a low intelligence that they cannot learn to become decent citizens, which is quite untrue. The Australian Aborigines are friendly and in their own way attractive people.
Naturally, it has been hard for them to understand why a white newcomer can take their kangaroos when they can't take his sheep.
When they smile at us, showing their lovely white teeth, they want to be friendly, and we must always try and make them happy in this land which once belonged to them.
So, just historically, when you call Gippsland a language group, it wasn't one language for the whole. That wasn't a language group, was it?
Yeah, the Kernite language.
They actually were 5 tribes.
They broke the Gippsland region up into these 5 key areas, taking into account of traditional boundaries. The representatives elected for each of these regional boards, regional LACs, would be drawn from the local Koori families.
And there's no sort of limit or on the size of the committees from each of the 5 regions, in each of the 5 regions?
So you mean the number of local Koori families?
Next level. How do you, I mean, is it possible that the committee there could be, you know, unworkably huge? You know, is there a workability issue here in terms of...
The communities would have to determine their family structure, because we find nearly everyone down our way is related in some way. And the families would have to determine who they are, and then they would determine who their representative would be.
At some point you're going to have some hard decisions, aren't you? You know, no, we can't fund your claim, but we are going to fund their claim.
I've been working with Angus and Sarah, and we haven't had a problem of allocating resources, but the way it's happened so far is that I've become responsible for Wurundjeri and Kurnai-Gunai, and Sarah's lodged the Gunditjmara, Watchabalak and the Romval claim, and so we are managing to cover the state as claimants are identified. The only thing holding us up is making sure that our consultation is comprehensive enough.
State bodies have always had the information and they've kept it to themselves. We're getting the information and taking it back to them and saying, here, look, this is the information that we've got. Give them a proper voice.
We want to see this implemented at our state. If it can help other people, we want to do that. But I'll give this to the chair to present to you, because if you're going to head off, the boss.
I love the way you do this.
Thanks, good idea. Great, thanks a lot.
No worries.
Okay. Can I just, before I go, just say, I think you're aware, you know, the bill to amend the Native Title Act was introduced in June. We have spent the last 2 or 3 months talking about the further amendments to that. and I hope they'll be released publicly next week, and they will deal with the rights negotiator and representative bodies, and that will be in the form of what we call an exposure draft, so that the amendments themselves will be on the table for further comment and feedback, because at this stage I suspect what we'll do is introduce those amendments as amendments to the bill in the Senate, so we're not going to be debating them in the Senate till, you know, late November, early December, I imagine. But we really would like your, you know, your response to what is released next week. Major tracks.
No, thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I look forward to seeing Gippsland in January.
Yes, well, it'll be nice weather.
And I'll assure my relatives their backyards are safe.
Make sure if you go fishing, you've got a permit.
I will do that. Okay.
All right.
Likewise. Down that Cairns River Highway many times.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care. Bye. What did rain do?
Some sort of conclusion for that $10,000 or near $10,000 profit that he made was something that he should not have done.
Now, this is called the foyer, and it's just the reception area. On the timeline that I was telling you about, this is the second of those 4 areas, and the architect said he wanted this to symbolise Australia just after European settlement. The outside was Aboriginal, this is the beginning of European. Nobody's suggesting that this is what Botany Bay looked like 200 years ago. But the elements of European culture are here. Marble floor, marble columns, beautiful staircases, polished timbers. That's all European culture,
What we're after is a copy of the
amendments that came
through.
Amendments?
Good. Terrific.
We've actually mailed a set to your office, and that should get there probably today. But that's a copy of the explanatory memorandum that explains the reasoning behind each amendment, and that's a copy of the amendments themselves, the latest version.
Terrific.
He's actually in a briefing with the Attorney General's backbench committee at the moment, but he might have gone from there to that, yes. Busy day.
All right, Ken. Got no money. You know what my wallet's got? Nothing. No, I can tell you. You don't believe me, like nothing.
Want the credit card?
Nothing. Politicians never have any money.
I've started off with an ideological objection to the Act, and what we're going to do is drag him kicking and screaming and gently to see that this is a balanced Act. This was a compromise that was negotiated.
Yeah.
There's 161 pages now, with the amendments that they put in yesterday, on top of the amendments they put in June. This is from a mob who says that the Act's unworkable and complicated. The Act itself's on 127 pages, and they've now got amendments running to 161. There's no timetable at the moment, but my view is that nothing's going to occur before Christmas. You're looking at the early part of next year. We've got to try and get it right. We're still waiting for the High Court's decision in Wick. That's going to produce another series of amendments. You watch. You know, so they're not going to fix this up overnight. Took 200 odd years for them to recognise that there were people here before Captain Cook.
I say hello to them every day. You got to look after me today, fellas.
Good.
They do. They're doing a great job.
Good.
I'm still here. Come on in.
Thank you.
That's the wound here. I'll get Greg out of the way. That's the surgical wound. And in traditional Aboriginal medicine, when a wound occurred, they'd get the bull ants and put the bull ants across the wound, you know that, and then pull the bodies off. And I was aware of this, and I explained this. I was just casually, I had no idea this was going to happen, because this came up 3 months later. But obviously I didn't tell my story very well, because when it was painted they had the bull ends pointing the other way. See, with the claws up there. I should have explained. I just assumed that they knew, which you should never do. But see, what they used to do is put the claws over there and pull the body off, and the claws fit. I mean, what's so fascinating, because that's the standard method of closing surgical wounds now with metal clips.
Yes.
See?
Yeah.
Aboriginal people did it.
Yes.
Thousands of years.
Very good. Death is our chair lady of our organisation, which is Mirrabee, Aboriginal Corporation. We'd Mark to pull out his maps and we'll do
jump straight into talking about the structure of Mirrabee.
Great. Yeah, pretty much.
Yep, that's up to you.
I think we need to spend more time with him on it though.
Yes.
And he does need to come down to Victoria and see us at work, and then I think he'll have a better understanding where we're from, because I still want him to see that we are the rep body for the state, besides the order who have that right to be there because they started before us.
Yes.
That we can deliver everything, and that we are grassroots orientated, and that it is a sharing. It's not just a power base, that we are driven by the community.
Long tall ships have sailed out across the seas. Long tall ships, how they have come unto me.
That's the deal. And if you're going to take away from the deal, you're breaking the deal, you know? That's our strongest argument. That was the compromise. Right to negotiate was a compromise. Well, we're not going to detract further from that compromise, you know?
We've had a look at the amendments and done some briefing papers up for our executive committee. A lot of them seem to be attacking some of the stuff that we've been able to win in the federal court, negotiation in good faith and those sorts of things. So we're pretty disappointed because they were wins along the way for us. We think the amendments obviously do offend the Racial Discrimination Act, and I think that that's something that we as a group need to really get very clear.
We are really concerned about the Minister's power to intervene in processes, certainly on the basis of the current Minister's performance in Aboriginal affairs. The alarm bells are ringing, lights are flashing. More and more it seems that other options of mediating, talking, negotiating, slowly but surely disappearing. And what's looming as an option to resolve many of these difficulties is legal action in the court system.
What it creates is an unworkable monster. It's certainly a draconian, petty-minded, right-wing load of rubbish, which to me reads like something the WA government probably penned. It seems to have their signature all over it. But it's got nothing whatsoever to do with the protection of native title rights.
John Howard's about to tear up the peace deal, you know? The enormity of what the government proposes to do needs to be conveyed publicly by us. That, it's like tearing up the Civil Rights Act or something. It is for Australia that significant an act of betrayal on the part of the government, you know? The Native Title Act's not the be-all, end-all. It's not the final peace settlement, but it's a crucial cornerstone to that, you know? So if you get rid of that, it's not just another piece of legislation. If they expect us to give any more blood, well then clearly we don't have the blood to give, you know?
And I suppose the only bewildering thing left for us is why the federal government is just leaving us as a Native Title Act. Why aren't they calling it Native Title for Industry and Mining Act and just go through and just complete the whole bloody process? Because there's very little left in it that's got anything to do with Indigenous people.
This gets us back into the 50s, and I don't want to go back there. I don't want to be back on a mission, having ministers and white fellas, bureaucrats making decisions for us. You know, we've come too far and we've struggled too much, and so many people have suffered because of it. And I want to stand up and fucking fight. We have a responsibility to protect Aboriginal people's rights in this country. And now we've sat around for 6 months. We've been prepared to negotiate in good faith to make perhaps it work a bit better. Well, what have they done? There has been no good faith on anyone's part other than ours. You know, we should not be surprised about their exposure bill, because that was their position before they even come here. And we need to decide whether we'd want to bloody go and meet with Mitchin at all. Is he the one who makes the decisions? I want to know who's got the say about this.
Phase 2? Where are we? Oh, okay, yeah.
Indigenous spokespeople of representative bodies across Australia yesterday delivered a strong statement of protest to Senator Nick Minchin on the government's proposed amendments to the Native Title Act. We told Senator Minchin that the fundamental survival of Indigenous cultural and social lifestyle was at stake. This government has failed to treat us as equal in a process which has long-term social and political ramifications for this country.
You got enough now, guys, or how much do you want? Well, I think it'd be better to have these discussions privately, if you don't mind. So I'd like to regard this as a, so-called big fact, if that's all right.
All Australians would oppose such an attack on their fundamental rights. Why should we be any different? Like other Australians, we will not accept the removal of our rights that we have achieved under the native title legislation. Particularly in the proposed amendments, we reject the right to negotiate the government is trying to undermine in relation to the exploration stage. We reject the ministerial intervention in all levels of commercial negotiations and arbitration. And we reject the political interference and administrative overkill in relation to the role of representative bodies. We believe that it's an attempt by the government through these proposed amendments to turn the clock back to pre-Mabo days.
The talk is to make the Act more workable. It is more workable, but not for the Indigenous people. It's more workable for industry and every other interested party. It is not for government or other people in this country to determine for us what our rights are. We know what they are, and we shall determine them.
It should be a warning to other marginal groups in Australia that this government is not prepared to look at human rights, to look at social issues, to look at equality in terms of not only economics, but social, cultural and religious issues. And I'm sure that the Aboriginal people will turn up and fight, because you're really declaring war on the Aboriginal people by taking away these rights.
Spring's been their tribal home for 1,000 years. 2 perhaps, since the time we were savages anyway. 1,000 years. One day a bloke walks into the government land office in Adelaide, 800 miles away, bangs down 80 quid, they hand him a bit of stamped paper. Karagani haven't got a tribal home anymore. It's a sheep property. It's happening all over the place, and we're left to clear up the trouble. What trouble? Their hunting disturbs your stock disturbs their game. Look, I've come out here to breed sheep, and I don't aim to let no mob of Stone Age blacks stand on my road. Then show them your paper. They'll understand that.
Atrocities have happened throughout the world, not just to the Aboriginal people.
And the Prime Minister today described Aborigines as the most disadvantaged people in Australia.
48% of the community supports Pauline Hanson, according to the AGB McNair poll published this morning.
If somebody disagrees with the prevailing orthodoxy of the day, that person should not be denigrated as a narrow-minded bigot.
There was more pressure for Mr Howard to take a stand against the anti-Asian and anti-Aboriginal views of controversial independent Pauline Hanson.
Of all identifiable groups in the Australian community, none is more disadvantaged than the Aboriginal people.
But the government could run into trouble over amendments it unveiled today to the Native Title Act.
Changes would enable the government to override land rights negotiations if they threaten a project of major economic benefit.
I declare open this public meeting of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Native Title and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Land Fund and welcome all witnesses.
Good evening, Mr Chairman and committee members. We appreciate this opportunity to outline the Association of Mining and Exploration Companies, that is AMEC, position on the proposed amendments to the Native Title Amendment Bill of 1996. AMEC member companies are engaged in mineral exploration, mine development and mineral production throughout Western Australia, in all other Australian states and territories, and at a rapidly growing number of overseas locations. In fact, I'm a director of a small company that very recently shifted its major exploration focus to Southern Africa, Botswana. One of the main reasons being difficulties with the Native Title Act. And that's quite a common trend in the industry.
Is the focus overseas just a general trend because we're now becoming more and more a global village, or are you being forced out?
There are a number of reasons that this is happening, one of which is the Native Title Act. The prime reason, which is a perception that there's better potential, unrealised potential overseas, because a lot of these countries haven't been thoroughly explored, whereas Australia is considered to be fairly well picked over.
It's also easy to do a deal with some of those companies overseas, isn't it?
Because they're short of funds, yes. In part. I mean, there are a lot of factors.
So you say native title is one aspect.
Yeah. And a lot of people say it's a catalyst, you know, it's the thing that...
Under the new provisions, Mr Chairman, instead of being required to negotiate, miners will only have to consult native title holders about access, sacred sites and the impact on native title. Native title holders cannot ensure that developers modify their behaviour in light of these consultations. And this, in my view, Mr Chairman, is likely to be an empty and tokenistic requirement.
What aspects of these amendments do you regard as concessions that industry are making?
Of the current set?
Of the current set of amendments. Forget the existing Act as it is. What concessions can you point to that might encourage Indigenous people, for instance, to the view that industry are making some concessions, that there's a win-win situation in these amendments?
Well, if you look at the right to negotiate process, that's still preserved.
But you agree it's watered down?
It's not watered down. It's probably the end result is that it would be made less frequent.
Various measures are included in the exposure draft which aim to ensure that the right to negotiate applies only once during the life of projects. The first measure, Mr Chairman, involves a proposal to allow mining titles which have been issued under the right to negotiate process to be exempted from the right to negotiate when they are renewed, re-granted or extended. Now, this is a bit like telling a landlord that after negotiating the terms of the lease, their tenant can have that lease renewed indefinitely without any further negotiation of the rent or any other matters ever being required.
Look, I've come out here to breed sheep, and I don't aim to let no mob of Stone Age blacks stand on my road. Then show them your paper. They'll understand that. Those of them that can read. They'll have to. That's not exactly a fair way of looking at it, Mr. King.
Good evening, Kathy Boland in Melbourne with ABC News. A landmark High Court ruling has found Aboriginal native title may coexist with pastoral leases.
After a 4-year fight, relief and joy overflowed. The Wick people a step closer to having their native title rights recognised.
That is the Christmas present I'll take to the Wick people, and I was doing it for my people of the past, now and the future, and I'm a proud woman today.
Retail traders are resting weary tonight after a frenzy of last-minute Christmas shopping.
The court's ruling that native title can exist alongside pastoral leases is shaping up as the major political issue of the coming weeks.
The National Farmers Federation claims agreement for coexistence is impossible.
I think this decision has just about ended Aboriginal reconciliation.
This decision today guarantees every mining lease in the country. It guarantees everyone's backyard. It guarantees every pastoral lease.
If the pastoralists would have won, Aboriginal people would have lost. But with the win by the Aboriginal people, the pastoralists also win.
To kill off native title on pastoral lease land.
Now, the Prime Minister took the view that he wanted to wait until the Wick case. We've got the Wick case. We don't have the solution.
Into an unworkable situation.
The native title legislation must be amended so that we can receive certainty in relation to leasehold land.
The decision has caused great uncertainty.
It hasn't covered the High Court in glory, and it has left the Australian community at the edge of an abyss.
Urgent legislation.
A legislative response may be the only way of resolving this matter once and for all.
Native title once and for all.
We cannot go back to terra nullius. Terra nullius is dead, and people have to stop grieving over it.
Native title's here, it's obviously here to stay. If people don't deal with it in a way that recognises that fact, then I think they'll simply be making life harder for themselves than it has to be.
Aboriginal leaders have appealed for calm.
I believe that no solution lies in the federal government trying to step in and legislate to take rights away from traditional owners.
There's a racial discrimination problem, I think, if governments take away the property of Aboriginal people in order to bolster up the property rights of other people.
It's never been part of our system that the High Court makes the law. It's our system that Parliament makes the law and the High Court declares and interprets it.
Today's response by John Howard stands in stark contradiction to his comments just 4 months ago. Mr. Howard stated, "If the High Court of Australia brings down a decision which is different from what had been the previous understanding of the law, naturally I will accept that decision."
The federal government has signalled it may be forced to amend the Native Title Act even more than it had intended.
The land councils have organised a summit to discuss the Wick response in Cairns next week.
Politicians who want to act in good faith about this issue ought to make it their business to turn up.
The federal government has indicated it will be represented at that meeting.
The next major event, a summit on the issue in Cairns next week. The federal government to be represented by an observer.
Could we have all the mobile phones turned off, please? Thank you.
Lord Jesus, give us grace.
We want justice. Justice what God gave us to every Aboriginals and to white people. And we follow the law. We have our own law through that.
White people have their laws in their book, in a paper, written down in black and white. We have a law stick. This is the one that protect our ancestors in years way, way back in Dreamtime. They had a point. They had laws. They have power.
The Aboriginal law still stands where it cannot be seen. It's in the river, it is in the billabong, it is in the rock, it is in the caves, it is in the sea, it still remains intact, which gives me the rights to speak and control my land. No law has extinguished any native law. When you change a law in Canberra, that means you steal my land by your law without asking me. We will die to that land. We're going to be buried there to the land. We sing to the land. We give birth to the land. We cry to the land. What do? Rape it, reap it, dig it, pollute it, and leave it. That's what you do. We do exactly the opposite. And I think we're right, because we've been right for thousands of years, not 200 years, thousands of years. If you want to come to the party, come to this party, because we are prepared to talk and share.
This land was never given up. This land was never bought and sold. The planting of the Union Jack never changed our law at all.
John Howard and all his people are gathering same time in Canberra. We're all wondering, what are they talking about over there? They're supposed to be here talking with us.
Governments need to back off. They need to stop threatening Aboriginal people, to take away our rights and treat us as equals. Give us an equal opportunity, and that means standing back, sitting back and talking in a reasonable, rational manner.
Irrespective of what the government's intentions are in relation to extinguishment and rolling back the RDA, you're not going to do away with Aboriginal people unless they start shooting us.
The Labor Party doesn't want to play politics with this issue. It's bigger than that.
I want to get it right.
I think politics in this country has changed so that Aboriginal people now have considerable political power, and they have to be accepted as an integral part of the political framework of this country. But that's accepting that, I think, is going to be very difficult for a lot of people. It's going to require a change in culture and a change in mindset in some areas of Australia, and certainly from some politicians.
The Liberal Party apparatchiks have gone to the United States and studied under the Republicans as to how to put an imagined enemy in the minds of the public to swing the swinging voters back to the conservative sides of politics, you see. Now, this is called wedge politics. Pauline Hanson has created Aborigines who get too much as the boogeyman. And, you know, so all the white trash goes scurrying over to the National Party or to the mad independents or to the, you know, the gun lobby. So this is how the politics of cultural warfare works. And you can't put rational argument and facts on the table in that atmosphere of hysteria.
At a special meeting in Sydney today, the premiers laid out their plans for change.
Mr Howard said he wouldn't destroy the principle of native title or breach the spirit of racial harmony. But the Racial Discrimination Act is on the table.
You're asking me for a guarantee that we won't touch existing legislation. I can't give that. So we mustn't get hung up on this idea that you can never, ever, ever amend the Racial Discrimination Act or never, ever overturn a High Court decision.
Well, the Prime Minister's refusal to rule out changes to the Racial Discrimination Act drew an angry response from Aboriginal leaders.
And there's a very simple point, and I don't want to accuse anybody of racism. All Australians could, no matter where they come from, should understand. That is, that anybody who wants to get around the Racial Discrimination Act, who wants to breach the Racial Discrimination Act, must be someone in favour of a racist act.
At the end of it, it's about what is the shape of Australian race relations. Are we going to be a country, a democracy, that has some foundations in justice and principles of how we deal with these matters? Or are we simply going to react to expediency and to vested interest and to greed on occasions when it doesn't suit us.
But there is general agreement that law courts and politicians won't provide the answers. Regional agreements negotiated between pastoral leaseholders and traditional owners acknowledged as the preferred option.
No extinguishment to native title. No amendment to Racial Discrimination Act. Respect for the High Court's native title decisions. Resolution through negotiations and agreement. And further negotiation of a Native Title Act amendment. So they are points, very clear, very short, brief. Take it, Prime Minister, give it to Prime Minister, his government, and see what he thinks of it. Thank you.
John, how are you?
Oh, okay, no problem.
Hi,
Just wait
Shamrock.
outside. How are you going?
Okay, we're not allowed
Yeah,
in?
because not till Mr. Howard gets here.
Okay, can we get a white balance at all?
What's a white balance?
Just a...
Sorry.
In the room.
Sorry.
It's just off the wall.
David, there's nothing until Mr. Howard gets
Board over on the table. Mate, I'm only getting a white balance. Off the wall. Don't worry, I'm not taking any pictures though. No. Come, fellas.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.
It wasn't a meeting about the detail. It was a meeting to try and come to an agreement about how we proceed from now, how the process will work now. That's what the meeting is about.
When do you expect the government to issue a formal response to the WIC judgment?
That's yet to be determined.
What assurances, Mr. Minchin, will you be giving?
Good afternoon. Where do we want to stand to do this? The failure of the native title process and the High Court's decision in WIC have destroyed certainty and security for Australian pastoralists. The courts will find that extinguishment has occurred on most pastoral leases. There can be no doubt about that.
Do you think there'll be a lot of tension today?
I don't anticipate that will be the case. No.
Yeah, we have. They're very interesting now going through England and seeing just big gaps where all the elms have disappeared from. We worked, we tried.
One of the things we've only just learned to do in recent times is to really integrate the Australian natives in with the English trade.
Yes, we're doing a lot better. I'm trying to reach an outcome that respects the opposition of the Indigenous people to extinguishment, but delivers the certainty to which I believe the farmers of this country are rightfully entitled, and it's very hard.
Oh, no, that sort of never happened.
I've had from the very beginning an idea as to how you might reach an accommodation in this area if there was some goodwill from all parties. And I've been trying all sorts of proposals, and you put a set of proposals in some discussion and then people react to that and you add a bit, and then you try somebody else and you take a bit away and you add a bit more, and you just keep trying until you get something that everybody clicks on. Now, in the end, that might happen. In the end, it mightn't. Righto, we better go and do some work.
Noel, are you hopeful?
I think that there is certainly a sense of goodwill, and that's good to know that there's a spirit of cooperation amongst all stakeholders.
The Prime Minister has said very clearly that security for people in the pastoral industry, as they understand it, is an essential for settling this matter.
How did the Aboriginal leaders at today's meeting respond to that point of the Prime Minister's?
Well, their point is that we don't need to do anything to secure our interests. We don't believe that. And quite frankly, we will need to have security for our position in legislation. So we're not accepting anything on trust. We want it all written down. We want the I's dotted, the T's crossed, and the full stops in all the right places.
Can black and white Australians live in harmony when the High Court's weak decision on native title has created uncertainty, especially for farmers? Whose land is it? Who can use it? Farmers want their rights restored and control of their future. The weak decision. It's not a game. Tell the politicians we need legislation to sort out the mess and get it right for the sake of black and white.
Authorised by D. McGeechy for the NFF Canberra.
You wouldn't employ it.
Starts from the beginning though.
Yep, here we go.
Working the land is tough enough. The High Court's weak decision has made it even tougher.
These are representatives here of the National Indigenous Working Group on Native Title. We have been preparing position papers. However, our attention has been distracted by the appalling use of propaganda strategies by the National Farmers Federation, in particular this ad in the newspaper purporting to represent the farming families of Australia, and the television ad. So I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the members of our team. I'll hand over to Noel Pearson.
A guy like McGeechy, right, from rural Victoria, he's going around striking terror in the hearts of people out in all corners of the country. People who really do believe that if native title remains on land, they will have to walk off it. That's what they believe out at Cloncurry. That's what they believe out in central Cape York. That's what they believe in southeast Queensland, that native title will literally drive them off the land. Our concern is the National Farmers Federation has been so unreasonable, has told so many lies, has painted any white person in rural Australia that wants to be fair about this business as traitors, as nigger lovers. That's what they've done. There's many fair pastoralists who want to do a good deal with us, who want fairness for both sides, who have absolutely been pilloried across the countryside as traitors.
They've been able to con new people in particular that they're talking about poor little battling farmers. Most farmers are unaffected by the WIC decision. We're not talking about farmers, we're talking about people who are pastoral lessees, renters of public land. You know, some of these holdings, these lease holdings, are as big as Belgium. You know?
Hugh McLaughlin is listed in Barons of the Bush from the Farmers Journal 4.7 million hectares. He's directly represented in Cabinet. There's 2 others who are directly represented in Cabinet, and we get this rubbish. Some of us will have to quit the land. And who will feed Australia then? You know, this is unmitigated garbage. The National Farmers Federation is nothing more than a jumped-up advertising agency for the richest people in the world.
And these people can't accept that they may have to coexist. They may have to share. They may have to unlock the gate. The fact is that Aboriginal people can and will sit down and negotiate a workable document. But what do we see here? We see a situation of people using wealth to support wealth.
It's up to you people to start telling the truth and start to find out about some of the details about what's going on in relation to this whole argument. And you need to look at that document produced by the farmers about the who's got all the holdings. Start to do a bit of your homework to find out.
The land we're talking about is Crown land. It's public land. The government holds that land on behalf of all of us. It's our land, the public. We own that land. They rent that land. They're renters of land. What their objective is to turn that public land into freehold for a song. It's a problem. They can't get it for a song if native title remains on it. That's why they're still screaming. McGeechy was screaming yesterday. Abolish, abolish, extinguish, extinguish. Because it's the obstacle to get there. McGeechy says this is natural evolution. Yeah, that's the term he used. It's a natural evolution that pastoral leases should become freehold title. It's a natural evolution that the Sultan of Brunei should own 1 million hectares of Australian land in freehold. I mean, that's absolute nonsense. That's where the scam is. This is just the start. You know, the public, when are we going to get a go at our land? When are the native title holders are going to get a go? They don't bloody own the thing. They're renters. They rent land off us, the public.
Good afternoon, how are you? Now, this has been a long time in terms of looking out that place to put a claim on it. And so the Mabo legislators give us that right to do that. That's not a problem. I mean, in terms of tourist accessibility, I mean, it's not going to change. Well, it has to go through the normal process of any native title claim which takes place in this country of ours.
The Wilson's Crumb's part of the Gunai claim. And today we've got the Bunurong and Gunai representatives to look at the parish plan maps and to go over to make sure that we've basically covered all the areas that are relevant to the claim. The west of Stockyard Creek there is part of the joint claim, and up to that sort of inland up there, and then all the way down there. These have included all for completeness. And Meanion's also got this little one here, 3014. You okay with all of
I
those?
suppose it will validate who we are, and also will give recognition to the people of the Bunurong and that they have survived, and we can always make sure that this place is respected and protected as we had outlined in our claim.
The problem to me is it's a place of significant light you can describe in terms of Uluru. To me it is anyway. That's my Uluru in Victoria.
What you're saying in your affidavit is that there is nobody else who've claimed Wilson's Promontory.
Not to my knowledge, no.
And that everything else that's been said in this application is true and correct as far as you're concerned.
Correct.
Yep. Okay.
The great myths about this Native Title Act, that it's a hindrance to development, is a fallacy. I refer specifically to the National Farmers Federation with their wild claims and their rumour mongering about this Act. This Act is a great opportunity for every Australian. It creates an opportunity where it actually validates freehold land, so nobody's backyard is going to be taken, and it creates an opportunity for people to begin dialogue, people to begin to respect our culture and our ways. It's not a threat to non-Aboriginal people. If anything, it can be the greatest thing for non-Aboriginal people, non-Indigenous people from all over the world to share in our culture through our eyes.
Tonight, a 48-hour ultimatum as Papua New Guinea is rocked by a military revolt. Victorian Aborigines set their sights on Wilson's Prom. Parts of Wilson's Promontory could be off-limits to the public if a Mabo-style land claim is successful.
The southernmost tip of the Australian mainland is the latest region to be targeted by Aboriginal groups.
Premier Jeff Kennett has called for a cut-off date for all Aboriginal land claims. He says Victorians shouldn't panic about the latest bid for most of Wilson's Promontory, but the Premier insists governments must bring some certainty to the land claim system.
Much has been done and said since the High Court handed down its decision on the 23rd of December last year. And indeed, these events can't be viewed in isolation of the long Aboriginal struggle for land rights and social justice. So let's take a brief look at some of the events that have led us to this point.
We committed the murders. We took the children from their mothers. We practiced discrimination and exclusion.
The 10-point.
And the great message out of my package is that farmers can run their properties without interference from anybody. The pendulum has swung too far in the direction of the Aboriginal community.
Hey, you're still another man's country.
I understand the anxiety that this native title issue has caused.
Oh, yeah. 15 seconds.
What I seek to do is to bring the pendulum back to the centre.
Peter Yu, what do you say to that?
Well, Kirsty, a lot of Aboriginal people haven't got clocks with pendulums, so they wouldn't know what it means in the first place. But secondly, the only true statement, he said it has swung too far right, and he's holding it up there in the right, but it's certainly not in Aboriginal people's favour. Why are people frightened to negotiate with Aboriginal people? Why are they frightened of agreements? Other than the only reason I can see, I mean, they would certainly have the upper hand. We don't have a history of complex type negotiations unless we use outside expertise. The only reason for me seems that they think that we shouldn't have the right to negotiate because of who we are. You know, that's racially based. There is ignorance, but there is deliberate ideological pursuit. And unfortunately, the nature of the way that the country has evolved has provided succour and comfort to those who've been able to reap the benefits of their involvement in the early disposition of Aboriginal people. Everybody can be here tomorrow? Yo! Yeah. Okay, so we meet here tomorrow at 9 o'clock? Yo. I mean, Howard, in the campaign post-Wick, has offered comfort to the farmers. He hasn't responded to 3 letters that we've sent of inviting him to come up to sit and talk to Aboriginal people in the bush to try and get some understanding about what we're talking about. He hasn't given any guarantee or security in relation to the position of Aboriginal people in this country.
What a day.
John Howard was given the Aboriginal negotiators' final position on a weak response last night. He said that extinguishment was unacceptable. But he's gone to today's cabinet meeting saying that it is an option that remains on the table.
You were able to put forward your submission to John Howard last night at 7 o'clock. Do you think he's going to have enough time to really consider what you're saying?
We're being asked to comment about the politics of everything. We're trying to explain where we're coming from. It's not been an easy business for us to get on top of all of the detail and to get the political consensus together to arrive at what we think is a solution that is good for Aboriginal people and good for other stakeholders in the Australian community. As the National Farmers Federation sat down and said, we have a solution, you know, if they had a paper to put to the people of Australia as their solution to native title, it would have one word on it, as far as we know, and that is extinguishment.
Prime Minister John Howard inched closer to a deal on native title today, but not before an apparent difference of opinion with his deputy, Tim Fischer.
There's no change in the National Party's position, which is in favour of extinguishment.
4 hours later, Mr Fischer rushed to clarify.
We have never supported blanket extinguishment, wiping off native title across Australia, or for that matter, vacant Crown land.
Whatever the semantics, Aboriginal negotiators claim Mr Howard's plan will effectively destroy their rights.
The plan I put forward went a long way towards meeting the legitimate concerns of the pastoral community. The Aboriginal community must understand that the WIC decision went far beyond the expectation of the rest of the Australian community.
Still has to get it through the Senate, but it's a very unjust proposal, and it does absolutely nothing for Indigenous Australians, and may well be the death knell of reconciliation.
I won't be backing off the 10-point plan. I am very strongly committed to it. It is the only fair and just solution to a very difficult problem.
It gives licence to the states and territories to effectively carry out acts of extinguishment. It allows upgrades and conversions of leases. It limits the rights of negotiation in terms of what native title holders can and can't do, effectively removing the existing rights that are already in the legislation and therefore watering it down. That's something that's not acceptable to the national group.
A meeting of around 2,000 pastoralists in central Queensland today was unmoved by John Howard's promise to provide security of tenure.
Please don't believe this fear-mongering that says native title claimants can throw you off your property. They can't. We will never, ever allow that to happen.
And faced with an obstructive Senate, Mr Howard said the government had a plan.
Look, you have my assurance. You'll love it.
But despite the apparent hint at an early election, the meeting ended with the vast majority still demanding native title be extinguished.
We believe that the whole matter should be progressed on the basis of coexistence, and that from that point that we're happy to accommodate the interests of farmers and miners. We've made that quite clear from the start. We've acted in good faith, and in return we've been slapped in the face.
Is this the choice of all Australians, that they choose to ignore our rights and choose to hope that we may go away? Now, we've got no option to get on a ship and go back to England or France or anywhere else, mate. This is our home. If we can't enjoy the very rights, the human rights, the freedoms to enjoy the same rights that you enjoy, what hope is there for us in this country?
Aboriginal leaders meeting in the Northern Territory have unequivocally rejected the Prime Minister's 10-point native title plan. Leaders representing 65,000 Aborigines set fire to copies of the document.
This is a final drive. This is a revisit to our waterholes, to poison it yet again. This is rounding up Aboriginal people into the valleys and a final shootout. This must not happen in this country. Howard must get a message from these people here, sitting behind me, that his 10 points is not acceptable. By all of us, by everybody who's here.
Make your point, but I'm asking you now to move away
and take the seat with you. We do not wish to force our way through. If you don't move, we will have to. Now I'm asking you again to move away. You've got the people who asked the minister to come and put that ordinance bill through. We want that minister to come and explain it why. We don't want violence either.
Canberra, 26th of January 1972, Australia Day. The Prime Minister, Mr. William McMahon, made a long-awaited statement on Aboriginal land rights. He stated that it was in the national interest, as well as largely in the interests of the Aboriginals themselves, for mineral exploitation of their reserves to continue. The same day, 4 Aboriginals, Tony Curry, Michael Anderson, Kevin Johnson and Billy Craigie, raised a tent embassy on the lawns of Parliament House, Canberra, as a protest against the government's denial of land rights for the Aboriginal people.
Black people finally making a stand. They are fighting for one thing, that is land. We are not initiating violence. We are acting in self-defense, making a claim for Aboriginal rights.
I need to remind you in asking you to consider and to understand the approach of my government to the WIC decision, the declarations that were made about the impact of pastoral leases on native title by my predecessor and by a number of leaders of the Indigenous community of Australia who are present in this auditorium. I also need to, in the name of truth and the name of a frank discussion of this issue, to repudiate the claim that my 10-point plan involves a massive handout of freehold title at taxpayer expense. That is an absolute myth. It is absolutely contrary to the fact, and I absolutely repudiate it. So ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the plan I have put forward, provides an equitable balance between respect for the principles of native title and the very legitimate interests of pastoralists and others. I believe that my 10-point plan provides the only basis of a proper approach.
This luxurious Melbourne home is a fairy tale come true for 3 Aboriginal girls from Melville Island, 180 miles from Darwin. Mr. and Mrs. Deutscher visited the island last year and adopted 3 Aborigines to bring up with their own 3 children. It's all so new to them, and they're still a little wide-eyed. A long way from Melville Island, but at last a home and the love and affection of a family of their own. Sleep tight, children, because you know that dreams do come true, don't you?
We always knew that Aboriginal children were taken from their families, many in the most cruel and heartless way. Whatever the motivations and intentions of those who designed and carried out those policies, the report provides the detailed evidence of what happened. Reconciliation requires responsibility, yet governments appear to fear this because it might make them liable for compensation. Yet governments pay compensation to many people affected by their policies and actions. When the nation leaders rightly accepted responsibility and took a stand on the guns issue, gun owners were compensated from our taxes.
Reconciliation will not work if it puts a higher value on symbolic gestures and overblown promises. It will not work if it is premised solely on a sense of national guilt and shame. Australians of this generation should not be required to accept guilt and blame for past actions and policies over which they had no control.
It is a troubling business coming to terms with our history, both for Aboriginal people and for non-Aboriginal people. For our people, it is a troubling business because there is the imperative of never allowing anyone to forget the truths of the past, but being able as a community to rise above its demoralising legacy and to reach for the future. But it's also a challenge for non-Aboriginal Australia. A challenge to understand that in the same way as they urge pride in Gallipoli and in Kokoda and in many of these tragic aspects of the colonial past and the national past, in the same way as you are able to urge contemporary pride in those events, can we as a community and a nation also acknowledge the shameful aspects of that same past?
In facing the realities of the past, however, we must not join those who would portray Australia's history since 1788 as little more than a disgraceful record of imperialism, exploitation and racism. Such a portrayal is a gross distortion, and it deliberately neglects the overall story of great Australian achievement that is there in our history to be told, and such an approach will be repudiated by the overwhelming majority of Australians who are proud of what this country has achieved, although inevitably acknowledging the blemishes in its past history.
I don't think we in Australia at this juncture have the leadership to take us to reconciliation in 2001, regrettably. There are questions here at stake that are bigger than the small hearts that have concocted the 10-point scam. They are, we must never forget, only the government of the day. They are not God. And as vigorously as the present government may insist on where the moral and legal pendulum should properly sit, as vigorously as they insist on that, just as vigorously, just as vehemently, just as desperately must we insist on the moral and fair compromise set out by the High Court and negotiated with the Federal Parliament in 1993. And in closing, let me give you some words that I know my father would have liked to put across. Blessed are the peacemakers.
Debating at a fireside in this beautiful land of Oz. Could heaven be a better place than home? Well, supposing that it was. If heaven is in some future where that tomorrow's so unclear, then home for me, I guess, could better be nowhere else but here. Nowhere else but here, yeah, nowhere else but here, oh no. Home for me, I guess, might never be nowhere else but here.
As far as the eye can see, my country.
This area is a part of a network of dreaming trails. It comes down through up north and it ends down south. We have to protect this area. This is of great significance. A place of learning, healing and protection. You must treat it with respect. I have to acknowledge my feelings for that. Otherwise, I can't describe who I am if I didn't have those feelings, or what I am.
Mr. Speaker, the Native Title Act of 1993 has been a disaster for reconciliation in the Australian community. And can I say that the 10-point plan that has been developed by the Coalition strikes the right balance, the fair balance and the only balance. This is the best deal that the farmers of Australia are going to get. It's a good deal. It brings the pendulum back to the middle.
Well, you've got everything your own way, Mr. King. You wanted the blacks off your land and you forced the government to do the job for you. Well, that's my orders. Out they go, the whole lot of them. Where they go, I don't know. I guess no one cares. Well, Mr. King?
I believe in reconciliation. I believe in justice, too. We're not here because we want to be here. I mean, I love to be here, but not looking at those things like that. We're here for a purpose, for the truth. This is belong to us. It's what gives us identity. Now, if you're going to be a judge or something, you know, you can't help but to see it that way, the true judging of it. You know, that's reconciliation.
If there's one place we're all free to be, it's nowhere else but here.
Can you tell me why they stole the sunlight? Can you tell me I'll be on the line? Can you tell me why they stole the children? Can you tell me why they demons are they mad? They've come onto my land and come onto my people. Look at the blood that you shed. Look at the blood that he shed. Look at this blood that they've shed. Look at the blood that they've shed. Look at the blood. They've come onto my land and come onto my people. Look at this blood there.